The Enfield Poltergeist, London, 1977. In the small, quiet town of Enfield, London, something terrifying was stirring. It wasn't just an ordinary haunting. This was a case that would go on to baffle paranormal experts, journalists, and skeptics alike. Today, we dive deep into one of the most disturbing poltergeist cases ever recorded, the Enfield Poltergeist. It all began in August 1977 in a seemingly ordinary council house at 284 Green Street. Living in the home were Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. The Hodgsons were a typical working-class family, facing the usual struggles of life, until one night, their lives changed forever. Janet, the 11-year-old daughter, would soon become the center of a supernatural storm. It all started with strange noises, banging sounds that echoed through the house at night, furniture moving on its own, and objects flying across rooms. But it wasn't long before things took a much darker turn. On the night of August 31st, 1977, Peggy Hodgson rushed into her daughter's bedroom after hearing terrified screams. Janet and Margaret pointed to a large chest of drawers that had mysteriously slid across the floor by itself. Peggy pushed it back into place, only to watch in horror as it moved again, as if being pulled by an invisible force. Frightened, Peggy called the police. When officers arrived, they too witnessed strange occurrences. One officer even reported seeing a chair move by itself across the room. But no explanation could be found. The Hodgson family was left on their own, at the mercy of whatever force had taken over their home. Over the following weeks, the activity escalated. The poltergeist seemed to focus on Janet, tormenting her with physical attacks, slaps, bites, and even levitations. Witnesses reported seeing Janet being thrown across the room by an unseen force, her body contorting in unnatural ways. Word of the haunting quickly spread, attracting the attention of paranormal investigators Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. They documented over 2,000 incidents of paranormal activity over the course of 2 years. The house was a hotbed of supernatural phenomena. Furniture flipped upside down, toys hurled across rooms, and chilling disembodied voices coming from Janet. Perhaps the most unsettling part of the Enfield poltergeist case was the voice that began to speak through Janet. This voice claimed to be that of an old man named Bill Wilkins, who had died in the house many years prior. What made this even more disturbing was the voice's tone, deep, gravelly, and utterly unlike that of an 11-year-old girl. Bill Wilkins, speaking through Janet, described in detail how he had died of a hemorrhage in the house, sitting in a chair. Investigators later confirmed that a man named Bill Wilkins had indeed passed away in the home under the exact circumstances Janet described. As the story spread, journalists, photographers, and skeptics flocked to the Hodgson home, eager to witness the phenomenon for themselves. While some were convinced by the bizarre occurrences, others believed it was all a hoax, especially when Janet was caught bending spoons or seen bouncing on her bed, attempting to fake levitation. But could it really all have been a hoax? With over 30 eyewitnesses, including police officers, paranormal researchers, and neighbors, how could the strange occurrences be explained away so easily? Skeptics argued that Janet and her siblings were merely seeking attention after their parents' recent divorce, but others weren't so sure. For 2 years, the Hodgson family lived in fear of the poltergeist that had taken over their home. Then, just as mysteriously as it began, the activity seemed to fade. By 1979, the haunting had all but stopped, but the scars left behind would never heal. To this day, the Enfield poltergeist remains one of the most famous and hotly debated paranormal cases in history. Maurice Gross and Guy Leon Playfair, the investigators who spent the most time on the case, remained convinced that what they witnessed was real, though many others continued to doubt. But for the Hodgson family, this was no story, no fabrication. It was their reality. The Enfield poltergeist raises an unsettling question. What if the unseen forces we fear most aren't just tales for the campfire? What if they're real? Is it possible that in the quiet corners of our world, in houses like 284 Green Street, something far darker lurks, waiting for the right moment to make itself known? Sometimes reality is far scarier than any fiction. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Enfield poltergeist, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Do you believe the Hodgson family's story, or do you think it was all an elaborate hoax? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying things are those that hide in plain sight.